afternoon. My name is Joseph Lloyd and I source cars for people on a professional basis, hence the name of my channel, Lloyd Vehicle Consulting. 4 years ago, I was asked to come up with a series of videos that were filmed inexpensively. We don't use digital cameras, we don't use fluid head tripods, we don't use shotgun microphones, we wear tatty shirts, we just use a phone. But we look at cars that you can buy for a budget up to £1,000 only, and we very much enjoy ourselves. These are cars that might be in cosmetically bad condition. You might see oil leaks, rattly dashboards and cosmetic imperfections, but we go all over the country and we find these very inexpensive cars that you all seem to enjoy watching. Well, viewers. Before you say anything, yes, Mr Richardson from Furious Driving used to own one of these briefly. In fact, we might have a little clip of him coming up now. Mr Richardson, did you briefly own an automatic Fiat Brava?
Very briefly indeed.
Thank you, sir. So there you go, you don't need to say anything, viewers. We've already covered it. So this is a 2000 Fiat Brava 1.2 80 Trofeo. This is a facelifted Brava, unlike the one Mr Richardson had very briefly. And it's only done 41,000 miles. Of course, you might see this car on the Furious Driving channel at some point too. The Trofeo model was a special edition which was only made in 2000, towards the end of Brava production. So you can see it's actually got sort of raised letters. You can feel that. That feels like something you'd see, I don't know, on like a sort of children's bouncy castle or something like that. It's a very strange thing to put on a car because it doesn't really match the rest of the lettering on the car at all. So this is a post-facelift Brava. The earlier ones were introduced in 1995 along with the Bravo. Brava just means well done in Italian, like Bravo does. It's just the feminine form of it. So, you know, it's not a huge amount of imagination, but I'm really surprised just how much Fiat went down the road of differentiating these two cars, because they do look very different, particularly at the back. The front's very similar. The headlamps are quite small. There was I think projector ones on this, so that was something that you know, was quite new at the time to have them like this. And it's a very low front end as well. It's very, very low in comparison with a lot of the more modern cars that we see now. This car's been to the new Volare paddock at Brooklands with the Auto Italia car day recently. I think it is a very stylish design. These are very, very, very rare cars. Richard, who owns this car, was saying to me that when he went to that Auto Italia day, he didn't see a single other Brava or Bravo there. Obviously, maybe the later Bravos that came out in 2007, but certainly not these. So this was the more practical model with 5 doors and a very, very big boot. Let's use the key. There we go. Got the spoiler on this as well because it's a Trofeo. I think this is bigger than something like a Mark IV Golf, isn't it, viewers? It's a massive boot. It's got quite a lip on it, but then most of these cars of this type do. Let's lift up the boot carpet and we see a space saver spare in there that looks like it's never been on the car, which is good. I just can't believe the mileage on this car. You do see a few signs of rust sort of coming through on this, but that's not really a surprise actually for a car that's 23 years old. I just can't believe I've been given the opportunity to actually drive this. If you want to see the automatic Brava that Mr Richardson did actually own briefly, I do know the person who's actually bought that, so I might be able to actually get that on the channel as well if I ask him very, very nicely. So comment down below if that's something you'd like to see. So this is called the 80, it has about 80 horsepower. I think it's actually 81 horsepower in this car. 1.2 16 valve engine, but was introduced with a facelift, which it was in 1999. Trofeo is a very strange special edition because we've got the front fog lamps that you would have already seen, just there down there. But we've got wheel trims and no aircon. But we do have a leather steering wheel. Very peculiar. Sort of similar to an SX, which is the mid-range trim on these Bravas, and probably the most common type. The most common engine, I think, is the 1.6, which also came with an automatic option. I don't think any others did. And I think possibly only on the SX models that like 1.6 automatic. One thing I love about these cars is this stereo unit. I could just do this all day. I don't know why, but that is wonderful. Obviously, because this car has done such low mileage, it is in great condition. That sort of release for the cassette deck. That was obviously a very different thing at the time. Most cars in 1995, when the Bravo and Brava were launched, would have had just a normal stereo in them. The unique fit radio was sort of coming. I think the Citroen ZX might have been the first car to have that in 1991, but by the mid-90s, stereo theft was sort of a huge thing. I mean, the options to take the faceplate off, which is still common today in aftermarket radios. Even with Renault 11s and things like that, you could lift the whole radio out and carry it around in a bag, so you didn't want to get it stolen. But this, they decided that, you just fit something that looks really weird, and that's fine. Got the controls here for ventilation, no aircon, which is really strange. We do a passenger airbag, which on most of the Brava and Brava trims was an option, along with side airbags. The column stalks are very, very peculiar. They are very, very weird. That's for the lights. I'm surprised that it's not put the buzzer on, actually, so it's got the doors open as well. I like these instruments. They're really, really clear. They, are some of the best I've ever seen in terms of just actual clarity. Made by Veglia and Boletti. I really should stop with my terrible accent, shouldn't I, viewers? I can look down here and actually see you've got an adjustable steering column, and the bonnet release is there. It's unusual. I will not be touching the parking light button, viewers, because when I drove a Fiat Tempera that belongs to the person who actually owns Mr Richardson's automatic Brava, that had a parking light switch on it as well, and that caused me no end of troubles. I'm not touching that. Cigarette lighter down here in this little compartment. It is quite neatly done. So the plastics don't feel the best quality, but it actually is soft touch. You can tell that Fiat have tried to address some of the criticism that they had in the early 90s models, things like the facelifted Uno and the Tipo, and tried to make the car feel a bit better quality. Mirror switches down here for some reason. I imagine actually if you had like an HSX or an ELX, you might have got rear electric windows sort of somewhere else, maybe on the door there, maybe down here, I don't know. Not really much else going on here apart from that's the rear ashtray and a normal handbrake and a 5-speed manual. It's not the nicest gearbox I've ever used, but it's okay actually. I'll have to see if my secret mission documents actually fit in there. Actually, no, there's absolutely no way they're going to fit in there, is there? Never mind. Mr Richardson has been filming this car earlier today as well. He's reclined that passenger seat, so I'll have to maybe sort that out as well. Vents are a little bit on the sort of weird side, really, but they seem to work okay. The hazard switch is right there, just in case you need it, because it's a Fiat. No, I shouldn't make jokes like that, should I? That's very silly. Okay, let's have a look in the back, shall we? Want to know where the CD changer is in this car? It's actually there. I've never seen a CD changer there before, but, well, there it is. Okay. So, I think it's a button for the headrest, isn't it? Yeah, it is. It's a button for the headrest. Side airbags as well. Yeah, those on most of the trims were an option, so Trofeo was actually quite well equipped in certain areas, and in other areas it's a bit strange. But there we go, at least we've got the electric sunroof as well. Just climb in. I've also thought a bit about the rear legroom and how people are going to use the car. The most unfortunate thing is, although this is the version that's more aimed at families, my head is right against the roof and my knees are right up there, which is my driving position here. So yeah, that's not great, is it? We do have those mat pockets in here, and like the door bins in the front, we've got door bins at the back, and they're massive. They're absolutely massive. Biggest problem though is some of this plastic has really sort of worn away over the last 23 years, and the interior door handles have very much suffered in that respect. But yeah, it's okay. Have we got an armrest here? No, we don't. Never mind. But at least these seats will split and fold, and you can probably tug that there. And if I would have to with my right hand, I'd be able to just pull that up. But there we go. It is very airy in here. I just think this roofline is really compromising my headroom. I don't know what the Bravos are like. Maybe I should test a Bravo if I can actually find one, which would be difficult, and see if that's actually a bit better, because this isn't very comfortable like this at all, viewers. My knees are sort of in the middle here, and my head's against the roof. So not the most practical family car of the 1990s and early 2000s. Right, viewers, that was a right fight to get to the bonnet release for some reason, but we got there. So just normal strut, and this is the 1.2 fire engine as used in, gosh, so many different Fiats up until very, very recently. Developed 81 horsepower, but obviously it sounds better to call this the Brava 80 as opposed to Brava 81. These engines do have a cam belt, so obviously make sure when you're buying one of these that that has been replaced at the appropriate time. Apart from that, the earlier ones of these just went into the Mark 1.2s did have a reputation of head gasket failure, so obviously make sure you do the oil filler cap check when you're buying one of these, if you're actually going to buy one, because they're so unbelievably rare. But it's amazing to see one in this sort of condition. Right, viewers, what is this Brava like to drive? Well, it's a bit more comfort orientated than I expected. There weren't really in this country any high performance Brava models like there were for the Bravo, which had you know, things like the HGT. There was a Brava HGT sold in some other places, I think in 2001 only. But we didn't get that over here. The sort of most sporty thing we got was a 1.8, 113 horsepower. The basic engine when the car was launched was a 1.4 12 valve unit that only developed 79 horsepower. In the year 1999, with the facelift, like this car, that was changed for a 1.2 16 valve fire unit with 81 horsepower. The most common engine apparently in these Bravas is a 1.6 with 103 horsepower, which was the only one you could get with the automatic. Hopefully at some point we'll be able to have a look at that automatic Brava that Mr Richardson owned briefly. The trim levels available in one of these were S, S-Team, SX, ELX, it was the fancy one, and HSX. The HSX, I think, was only available with a 1.8 engine. I could be wrong about that. But also special editions like the Forza, Trofeo, and the Formula. This Trofeo was only available in the year 2000. Most special editions, I think, came with a 1.2 actually, from memory. Yeah, it's very soft, surprisingly so. Very light steering. Suspension is sort of medium, I suppose. A good sort of compromise for rougher roads and things. It's very easy to thread this car through town streets. We are in the middle of a place called Lloyd that's near Epsom, and quite fond of this really. It's very easy. It doesn't feel demanding in any way. 0 to 60 in this car is something sort of utterly horrendous, like about would it be, about 12.5 seconds or something. It's not really a very, very fast car. But I don't really think that's the point of this. I don't think Fiat were going for kind of an out-and-out sort of performance monster. For that, you probably bought a Bravo HGT. With this standard model, I think they were going for what the families who bought these primarily would have wanted, a car that's quite spacious, although the rear's not the best. You know, with suspension that's not horrifically uncomfortable, and steering that's nice and light. I think that's, you know, what they were going for. And yeah, I think overall they succeeded in what they set out to do. Certainly a car that you know, has been largely forgotten, like the Stilo. Actually, the Stilo's insane. You don't see those either. That was a more sort of head-on attempt to go after the Golf, but it didn't really work for some reason. And neither did this. You just don't see these. You see, you know, loads of these sort of Mark IV Golfs and things like that, and the, you know, the Nissan Almeras and things like that. But you just don't see these. They plummeted in value, obviously, almost immediately, kind of after these cars were new. They plummeted in value because nobody was that interested in them. But these days, you're having a bit of a renaissance. Oh, the RDS system obviously works. Oh, I forgot to say, there were some diesel models available, but as usual, due to controversial government legislation and all kinds of other reasons, we don't talk about diesels on this channel. One thing I do quite like about this car is the sound the engine makes. Just drop it into second and then accelerate. I'm not sure if you can hear that, viewers, but that does sound really good. It might not be the sharpest car to drive that I've ever had, and actually the ride on this very poor surface, just on the fringes of Surrey here going towards Greater London, where I don't think this car is going to be compliant with the ultra low emission zone when it's coming to this area in August. It does feel a bit sort of bobbly. Will I prefer one of these over a Golf? I don't know. Something like a sort of Mazda 323F, or maybe even Nissan Almera is maybe more my kind of thing. Brava 45, I suppose. If you have one of those. Interesting question. If you want sort of ultimate into exclusivity and you want this kind of interesting styling, then this, I suppose, is a good choice. Lloyd Consulting stickers, t-shirts and mugs are available by clicking the link to the Google form in the video description below. So viewers, should you consider a Fiat Brava or Bravo with your hard-earned budget up to £1,000? I think in some ways that's a very academic question. I mean, it's really impossible to find one of these on the second-hand market. I can't believe that Mr Richardson has actually found two of them, one that he has owned and one that he has driven. I actually quite like this car in a way. It's not the sort of thing that perhaps you'd immediately kind of spring to mind as being sort of for me, but because of its rarity and the fact it's unusual, and the fact that it's actually the basis for the multiplier as well, I just find that quite fascinating. But yeah, but like any old sort of old car from this era, check for rust, make sure the car's been serviced, and be aware of things like electrical faults and trim rattles and that sort of stuff. But anyway, thank you ever so much indeed for watching this episode of No Budget Reviews. Please don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like this video in the comment below, and we shall see you again soon for more inexpensive motoring.